And I feel like that was kind of an issue last year, was not just obviously overall coaching, but when you're looking at positional groups, especially offensive line as well, even though we're missing talent, you were not bringing out the best of these. So any type of talent we can bring in, I know it's the cliche iron sharpens iron, but that's what it is. Getting these people who have done it before, have the right mindset, and bring out the best of these players. Because from a talent standpoint, we're not that far off from being like really competitive, right? Contending, that might be a different story, but to like really be one of those playoff teams, we can do that. That's the problem. That's why we haven't met expectations, because our best guys are not, they're having DJ Moore seasons, right? Yeah. And not getting up to their highest potential. So I'm super, super excited about that.
This is a playoff. In my mind, this is a playoff team. And what keeps them from being a championship team is I just don't think they have enough pass rush still. I mean, but you get down to those January games that are so close, and the other team's got the ball in the fourth quarter. Getting to that quarterback is what determines those games. So I think they can get to January tournament football. I just don't think they can win 2 or 3 games against the league's best with the pass rush they have, especially if it's Montez Sweat 2024 and not Montez Sweat 2023.
Yeah.
Big differences.
Right. Are they
still the flaw for me?
I wanted to move to the offensive line because you did release that article today on Sports Mockery, and it was volume 5. Before we go on to that real quick, Are they worried in the building at all about Montez Sweat? What's because we don't really hear a lot about Montez. I'll be honest, like he's super quiet. What is like Ryan Poles and company think of him? Seems like they're putting a lot on his shoulders to kind of bounce back in 2025 since they haven't made too many big additions.
A lot of talk about injuries last year is what you get with Montez Sweat, is that they think a lot of the lack of production that we saw from year to year was injury related. But he's one of those guys who's still going to go out there and play, right? He's still going to go out there and play, and we're still going to judge him the same way we judged him a year when he was healthy. A lot of it is injury related, so they believe in him. But Dennis Allen also knows that he can't rely on Montez Sweat to go out there and get 14, 15 sacks and be the entirety of their pass rush. They are actually very well designed to rush the passer now from the interior, which I love, which I actually quite love, especially in a division with a Jordan Love and with a J.J. McCarthy, guys who are not going to tear you apart with their legs on the outside. And Jared Goff. I forgot about Jared Goff. Like, they kind of have they have some statues at quarterback in this division now. So an interior pass rush is huge. Expectations are still going to be high for Montez Sweat, but I know they're disappointed that they haven't been able to add a significant player on the other side, but they also, those are hard to come by. Can they get Hendrickson from Cincinnati? I have such a hard time understanding a team like Cincinnati that we all know is so good, right? Last year, they were the most fun team to watch in the league. Their defense fell apart early, got better late. Why are you giving up that piece? Why not make that deal happen? You've got the quarterback and all these weapons. Make the run at it while you've got this now. Why would you kick the can down the road?
Yeah.
They are the cheap. So we'll see what happens. So I still don't see that trade happening, but an addition of a player like that to me is that changed the roster.
Well, remember with Joe Thuney's extension, they cleared up $8 million in
7.5-ish.
Yeah. So I mean, listen,
cap space. They can do other extensions, kind of manipulate the a little bit.
Sorry, Dave, you cut out for a second. We got you. Yeah, they freed up like $8 million with that extension, which is huge.
My question was, is it something Poles and company might even entertain, or is it more of just like a blog, like just like a dream scenario if Cincinnati is looking to move him?
There's 12, 15 teams eyeing it right now.
Really?
Of course.
That's the problem. It's like nobody. These kinds of rumors, nobody believes these things until they really have calls coming from the other team. The Myles Garrett thing. A buddy of mine told me, texted him, I said, Myles Garrett going to get traded? And his response was, no, Myles Garrett's not getting traded. Like, nobody believed that for a second, that Myles Garrett doesn't like the direction of the organization. Well, that changed wildly once they threw a couple $100 million this way. Huh?
That's true. Right. I'll make you stay.
Now those Browns have everything on the right track.
Right.
They have 17 quarterbacks. They have and one they're paying $250 million to can't play anymore. So everything's going really hunky-dory there in Browns land.
Yeah.
But though the Bears, I think one of the reasons why you clear that money, if this thing becomes real, you're one of those teams in a position to be able to make that deal. And again, we've seen from polls also, one of the things I like about him is that he's not afraid in season to make a big move. And if this team gets off to a hot start, if this team's 4-1 and they're looking up in October and they're like, we still need a pass rusher, he can start making phone calls because they have enough space there cleared to make those calls. You know, it might be more logical to try to get Hendrickson in mid-October if Joe Burrow gets hurt again. So, you know, you clear enough space when you have a roster like this. And I think this is a good Bears roster that's just a piece or two away.
Interesting. Speaking of pieces, Braxton Jones, your article today that was released on sportsmockery.com, you talked about it. Darnell Wright, you know, he's not a star quite yet. However, one of the biggest question marks going into this offseason was Braxton Jones. From the guys you talked to, you know, they weren't surprised that they left their left tackles alone, but they don't think Jones is ever going to be one of the best players at the position. And one of them called the left tackle is average. So what are your thoughts on him? And then personally, and then secondly, for me personally, what I've heard is they love him in the building, or at least Ben Johnson wants his hands on him to see what they can do with this coaching staff. How is he viewed in Hallis Hall, Braxton Jones?
They did not see a player that they had to replace, right? So when they did roster evaluations and they came in, they did not look at Braxton Jones and say, we need a better left tackle right now. That might change midway through this season. But they looked at a player, they looked at offensive line, and they said, the three in the middle have to be replaced immediately, and they set out to do that. There's a belief, and I share this belief, that if you get him the proper left guard next to him who's there and playing, I like the way Tevin plays. He was never on the field. And you got to be on the field. So the idea is Tooney will make Braxton better. The idea also is if this middle of the offensive line plays well and Darnell starts to play up to his potential, you can survive a mediocre or above, let's call him above average left tackle. If you have to help on the left, you're fine. The problem is when you have to help at left tackle, center, right guard, like when you have to help all throughout the line, it's no viable way to do that. So they were very happy to go into this season with Braxton Jones if they were able to rebuild the interior, and they were able to do that. So he reminds me an awful lot of Charles Leno. It's very interesting how they've got the same player almost. And Charles Leno went off and had a decent career in Washington. They said the same things about Charles Leno in Washington that they were saying in Chicago. Well, he's a good player. He's not a great player.
Yeah.
Your roster's not going to have great players everywhere. And this offensive line right now should be I asked these guys for grades today, and I think the lowest grade was a B that could be an A-. Was B+, was B+. That's where they see this offensive line. If they gel, it'll be even better. So I think Braxton has every opportunity this year to earn that role for 5 more years to come. That's the hope in the building. That's what they want to see happen. The question is, is the talent there?
That's great to hear because that's what we want, right? I mean, I know he's on a contract year, but we've talked about it, Dave. It's that he's not bad enough to get replaced. He just isn't, right? He's got his flaws, but he's not bad enough to get replaced. And the offensive line works as a unit. The problem is we had like 2 decent guys on the line and 3 horrible guys on the line or injured, and therefore the flaws of the 2 get shown more often because they have to carry more of the weight. And your goal is you're hoping that with this new interior line of Dahlman, Jackson, and Tooney, that now some of those flaws won't peek his head as much because you'll have help from the guards, right? So
I think the offensive line, the revamp they've done, it's quite remarkable, especially with Tooney, Jonah Jackson. There's a question here from one of our viewers about him as well. I want to start with, before we get you out of here, Jeff, is a couple of our viewer questions. This one is regarding DeAndre Swift. That guy 44 on YouTube says, what do they think of Swift, I presume, inside the building at Hallis Hall?
Replaceable. I mean, I think they were interested in these backs in the draft. I don't think they were interested to the extent that everyone wants to make them out to have been interested. Like, I don't think they went into this draft saying we need 6 backs, right? I think they went and got a guy in the 7th round. Ben's belief system is if the offensive line works, we'll get the production we need out of the backs. Now, he just had 2 special guys in Detroit, right? He didn't start with those 2 guys, though. So let him find out. I think DeAndre Swift is a completely usable back. Throw him the ball in the backfield, hand him the ball 10, 12 times a game. I think Roschon Johnson has value as a running back. One of my buddies made a really good comment, though, which is If your goal is to have Roschon Johnson get you the hard yards, he can't be as injury prone as he is, because it just those ideas don't coincide, right? You can't be getting the David Montgomery yards in an offense and be hurt every 3 weeks. So I think you're going to see him mix and match backs, and for everybody who made this argument in the offseason, look at what Saquon Barkley did for the Eagles. Okay, but the other team in the Super Bowl was playing guys that got off the street in October. So, the Chiefs were pulling Kareem Hunt out of a bar room in, mid-October. So this notion that you need a star running back, it's functionally untrue. The Bears' offensive line works. These backs will be just fine. Is there a star among them? Absolutely not. But we're not suddenly in a new era of football where you need star running backs because Saquon Barkley happens to be a brilliant running back running behind the best offensive line in the conference. So
that helps.
To me, I think DeAndre Swift will be just, if this offensive line works, you'll see a productive DeAndre Swift. You'll see a productive Roschon Johnson. The kid from Rutgers, are you, baby? Rutgers will be productive. I mean, I'm not worried about, I've never been worried about running back rooms. You can always add more talent. And at this team, we're a running back away from winning the Super Bowl. That's very different. That's clearly not where they are in the cycle.